This is a conversation that is completely ridiculous and honestly shouldn't ever need to happen, yet it comes up every other blue moon in some shape or form. Let me start from the top. A few days ago, a bit of a spat occurred on Twitter following CEO 2021 opening registration and quickly hitting cap, when Super Smash Bros. Ultimate player, Mars, stated that he wished top players would be allowed to do early registration for open bracket tournaments prior to them opening up public registration. It's a pretty tone-deaf complaint in itself. However, the more inflammatory part of his tweet is the second half, where he states he'd rather watch MK Leo and Light in a match rather than two dudes who are gonna go 0-2 and ask top players for pictures after they lose. Obviously, a huge number of replies voiced disapproval at this comment, as well as mocked it hilariously, and rightfully so because it reeks of shameless top player privilege. And I'm not suggesting that this is what he's trying to say, but in the worst case, his tweet could even be interpreted as Mars advocating for spots being taken from average players and given to established names who deserve to be there more. But regardless of how deeply his thoughts may go on the topic, the words expressed in his tweet go against something important that the FGC has always stood for. One of the most appealing aspects of the fighting game community is its natural by the players for the players structure, where events essentially run like conventions, which prioritize a level playing field and open competitive formats that can allow any seemingly average Joe to show up to a tournament and simply have fun with others, or take everyone by surprise. Even if they don't manage to take home the trophy, a new but skilled face can make a name for themselves by coming out of nowhere and giving top established players a hard time. It's not that uncommon. In fact, it's typically how top players are made, especially in scenes that have already been around for a long time. The regular underdog story is something that helps keep the spirit of the FGC alive. Thus, seeing other top players insist on closing off sections of open bracket registration just to ensure a spot for themselves works against this concept. Obviously, they might not intend any malice on their part. Their complaints might simply be coming from sheer laziness and surface level entitlement because, despite being adults with sponsors, they're not very responsible and oversleep past the narrow registration window for an event they know is capped, despite being told when it would be open ahead of time. But the most egregious thing that's in Mars's initial tweet, and greatly exacerbated in some of the replies of agreement to it, which mostly comes from the Smash community by the way, is this nonsensical rhetoric that nobodies who go 0-2 should be swept aside in favor of appeasing top players. Now frankly, this dishonest garbage is nothing more than thinly veiled celebrity worship trying and failing to masquerade as something that's for the benefit of the community. The FGC is built on the backs of people who go 0-2, because they're the ones who pay to attend these events and watch them at home when they can't. The entire purpose of open bracket tournaments is that nobody matters more. Everyone is on a level playing field and has to work their way to the top. A lot of people might not go with the intent or even the dream of actually winning, and that's fine. Are they genuinely hungry to make it out of pools, or do they just want to have fun? That's solely up to them. They paid to be there like everyone else. They contributed to the pot like everyone else, and it's completely up to them how seriously they wish to take it. Some people might think that competitors who go 0-2 don't draw viewers, but they are the viewers, and their viewership is likely what eventually led them to becoming entrants. These nobodies aren't stealing spots that belong to top players. They're earning those spots by simply not being lazy and complacent, and closing them off to ensure top player participation only limits the cultivation of more competition. Some people do improve, and someone who goes 0-2 this year might make it out of pools next year and then into grand finals the year after that. Furthermore, the idea of being able to potentially play with a top player is, in itself, a draw for some people. A lot of folks don't live in areas where big events are regularly held, and thus have to travel to go to major tournaments. It's possibly a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence for them to be in the same room with their favorite player, let alone to have an opportunity to play with them. Even if it's a guaranteed loss, the experience can mean a lot to somebody, and disparaging them by calling them nobodies or 0-2ers or saying that they don't matter just reeks of narcissism. They are the reason why the event you're attending is able to continue running in the first place. The fact that I can sign up for CEO as easily as, or easier than, signing up for a 16-man local is a testament to the FGC's accessibility and sense of community. And since we're on the topic of going 0-2, let's do a little math for those who might not believe that the average Joe or nobody makes up the majority of literally every open tournament. In a double elimination tournament with, let's say, 256 entrants, 25% of them, 64 in total, are going 0-2, with an additional 25% going 1-2. This is a mathematical inevitability that happens in every single double elimination event, regardless of how many nobodies or top players register. Even if you were to hold a 512-man competition of only the absolute best players in the world, 128 of them are still going 0-2, period. They have to, because that's how the tournament is structured. Does that suddenly make these great players nobodies? No, that just means they were sadly paired up against 2 consecutive players who were better than them, at least on that day. This means that approximately 50% of every event is paid for by the registration of people who don't do any better than 1 win and 2 losses. Insisting that they are disposable in any sense is similar in spirit to the equally ridiculous complaint that casual gamers somehow hurt the competitiveness of whatever fighting game they purchase, despite making up the majority of the sales. And sadly, it's a complaint that some people do still say on occasion, and it's still wrong every time. And such an idea is extra laughable when it's spouted by someone who plays Smash of all things. A second part of this grotesque celebrity worship pretending to be pro-community is the idea that there's not enough opportunities for top players to earn more money, viewers, or simply compete more. This is just an outright falsehood because invitationals exist and coexist with open bracket tournaments just fine. Both formats have value, but invitationals are the epitome of top player privilege, because they often have significantly bigger prize pools for a comparatively smaller amount of entrants. If you're a top player who only cares about the money, then invitationals are going to be more appealing to you because they offer twice or more the potential rewards for half or less of the work imposed by open bracket tournaments. Having that opportunity is your privilege as a top player. This also applies to viewers who claim to only care about established names competing against each other too. Invitationals exist for you as well. If you don't want to tune into a stream of an open tournament that has a couple of nobodies on it, then watch an invitational. To add on to this, there's no concrete evidence whatsoever which suggests that these invitationals always beat out large grassroots events like Combo Breaker and CEO in viewership by any significant amount. So the argument that top players are the only thing that draws eyes is a fallacious one at best. And even beyond everything that I just said, a lot of open bracket tournaments simply care more about being fun than being laser focused on competition. And that's okay. A lot of these events are basically run like conventions anyway, with sponsor booths and artist alleys and cosplay competitions and all that jazz. This is how the FGC grew over time, and it's what feels natural to people. Skewing this structure to appease top players and subsequently block out new competition just feels manufactured. Both open bracket tournaments and invitationals can work side by side just as they always have. There's absolutely no need to create or even entertain the idea of a false dichotomy that states otherwise. Anybody who suggests that focus should be shifted to invitationals at the cost of open brackets simply does not have the best in mind for the community, because they clearly don't know what it truly values. There's been attempts in the past by esports pundits and talking heads to create some sort of tone-deaf ultimatum that wanted everyone to pick one or the other, particularly under the pretense of getting more money into the community. But such a decision is completely fabricated and just not real. The very foundation of the FGC is these open tournaments organized and run by individuals mostly on their own dime. Even if they didn't get sponsors, or if the game's publishers didn't do things like contribute to the pot or even hold their own competitive world tour, these types of events would still exist through the sheer willpower and passion possessed by the most driven people within the community. And that speaks a lot on its self-sustainability. If you're one of those average players who wants to experience a large in-person event when they come back, do yourself a favor and go. It's an awesome time. Back in 2018, I saved up money to go to both Combo Breaker and EVO, and it was a great decision. Yeah, I did go 0-2 in almost every game I signed up for, but it was fun, and I would do it again. I hung out with friends, ate good food, and finally experienced a big grassroots event for myself, because such a thing isn't normally held anywhere near where I live. The closest is still a plane ride away. Even if you're not super serious about competing, it's still fun. In fact, you don't necessarily even have to sign up for any games, because all major events offer spectator passes too. If you are a top player, likely for Smash, who wants special treatment for registration, how about you just wake up on time like everyone else does instead of blaming the majority who don't do this for a living like you do? You already have plenty of privilege in the form of invitationals, which grant you opportunities for more money and viewership, and as a top player, you probably get way more viewers, donations, and subscriptions to your own personal Twitch or YouTube streams thanks to your popularity too. The fact that you think you're somehow owed more than this is ridiculous, and clogs my nose with the stench of entitlement. The entire community doesn't revolve around you, nor should it. You're just dudes who are good at video games. Open bracket tournaments aren't for you to act like a homeowners association deciding who gets to join your country club suburb. And this concludes my thoughts on the whole registration and 0-2 conversation. It's pretty embarrassing it's a conversation at all, but it continues to pop up in some form or another every other year or so. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you around.